Sakamoto Taro was once a legendary assassin in the underworld, a name that sent chills down anyone's spine. Known for taking down multiple notorious gangs at the same time, he was a terror among criminals. However, everything changed when he met a seemingly ordinary girl who struck him with love at first sight. As a result, he gave up his assassin career to start a family. Years have passed, and now Sakamoto is a devoted father with a robust physique. One day, Shin, a former follower of Sakamoto, visited his small grocery store. After many years apart, Shin missed the mentor who was once an idol in the assassin world. Inside the store, a mischievous young boy appeared. The boy arrogantly demanded that Sakamoto give him a carton of milk if he managed to shoot the target. Sakamoto, already struggling with his business, was both frustrated and amused by the audacity of the boy. His wife, Aoi, noticed the boy visiting the store often but couldn't understand why. Fortunately, the boy's first shot missed, but when he tried again, he accidentally spilled ink all over a customer's pants. The angry customer immediately grabbed the boy by the collar, ready to teach him a lesson. Taro and Aoi stood by, unsure of how to intervene. Things got worse when the boy stepped on the customer's pants again. In his mind, Taro imagined himself solving the situation by stabbing the man's head with a pen. However, in front of his wife and child, he refrained from taking such extreme action. After the incident, the boy thanked the kind uncle for saving him, while the family tried to calm the boy down. At this point, Shin spoke up, praising Taro's technique, sticking a pen in the lower jaw and hitting the carotid artery. That's impressive. However, this was only a thought in Taro's mind. Shin, who could read people's thoughts due to his psychic abilities, was shocked and reminded Taro that he was Shin, a loyal subordinate. The two of them went outside to talk. Shin could hardly believe that the legendary assassin he once knew had retired and become a portly grocery store owner. Shin eagerly hoped Taro would return to the underworld, but Taro refused, saying he had a family to care for. This response left Shin frustrated, unable to understand why someone who had once been the fear of the criminal world would give it all up. Taro, uninterested in the conversation, focused on his bowl of noodles. Shin was taken aback by how much Taro had changed, from his personality to his eating habits. In the past, Taro only ate rations and never touched noodles. Shin was about to light a cigarette but was swiftly stopped by Taro, whose reflexes were faster than a bullet. Shin was stunned by how fast Taro had reacted. This confirmed that, despite his physical changes, Taro remained the ultimate assassin who could still take anyone down at any time. One day, a neighbor came to ask Sakamoto for help, which made Shin think that the man might be disguised as a regular person to hire Sakamoto for an assassination. However, the truth was far from it. The neighbor simply wanted Sakamoto to trim a few unnecessary branches from a tall tree. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Taro, and they often asked for his help. What stood out was that, despite being a legendary assassin, Sakamoto never hesitated to help others wholeheartedly. Even feeding the children was something he did. Once, when he saw two kids crying because they didn't have a ball to play with, he tore the ball in half and molded it back into its original shape, astonishing the entire neighborhood. Shin, who had been following from the beginning, felt disappointed to see his former hero now serving everyone in the neighborhood. He praised Sakamoto for hiding his identity so well but thought the situation was ridiculous. He decided to leave, but just as he stepped outside, one of the kids shot him in the head, causing Shin to get angry. The kid quickly ran off, and Shin couldn't catch up. Once outside by the car, Shin revealed his true feelings. Although it had been 5 years, Sakamoto still looked as cool as ever. Despite now being a chubby uncle, Shin wanted to team up with Taro for one more fight and seemed so excited that passers-by thought they were a couple making out in the car. Just then, Shin got a call from his boss, asking about convincing Sakamoto to return to the underworld. Knowing that Shin hadn't succeeded yet, the boss demanded that Taro be eliminated, as it was a rule in the assassin world. Once someone's hands are stained with blood, it's hard to escape, even for a legend like Sakamoto. Shin tried to defend Taro, saying he was just a fat guy now, not causing any trouble, but the boss refused. He stated that if Shin couldn't handle it, then he would be the one to die. After the call, Shin decided to take matters into his own hands. That evening, Shin went to buy some snacks to fuel himself before the battle. Although he cared for Taro, he had no choice but to follow the gang's rules. He couldn't sleep all night, constantly thinking about the past. Taro had always been a reliable support for Shin on missions, and Shin felt that if he didn't act, someone else would. Shin thought to himself that if he had to kill Taro, at least it would be at his own hands. The next day, when two kids were playing with poop, Shin entered the store. Aoi, Taro's wife, greeted him. One of the kids happily offered Shin some poop to eat, but he declined, as it was time to fight. Taro, sitting inside reading a newspaper, understood immediately and prepared himself. Shin announced that he had come to say goodbye and then pulled out a gun to shoot. Unfortunately, the shot was blocked by a candy that was spit out at the same speed, leaving Shin shocked and losing sight of Taro. Although Shin could read minds, Sakamoto was harder to predict. Taro quickly created a distraction and used a rubber band to shoot at Shin. The shots were powerful enough to force Shin to dodge. Before he could regain his stance, Taro appeared behind him and delivered the finishing blow. At that moment, Shin's mind became foggy, and he realized how foolish he was to try and assassinate a legend like Sakamoto. When Shin woke up, he found himself bandaged up. Aoi and her daughter were thrilled to see him awake and invited him downstairs for a meal. The whole situation was so sudden that Shin didn't know how to react. He had tried to kill Taro, yet they treated him so kindly. Shin suspected that there was poison in the food, but since he had been trained to have immunity, he thought he would be fine. However, the soup he drank was far worse than any poison. In a different sense, Aoi noticed Shin's reaction and chuckled, saying, "My husband used to be just like this." After all the years as an assassin, Taro had never been cared for like this. But one couldn't deny that Aoi's cooking was good enough to win over even a legendary assassin. Shin felt the warmth of the food, something he had never experienced before. He thought to himself that Sakamoto was trying to protect these small, everyday moments. After the meal, they went for a short walk, and then had to say goodbye. Shin was very grateful for the dinner and had made a decision for himself. He returned to meet his boss, disappointing him by revealing that he couldn't go through with the mission because of his past relationship with Taro. Shin bowed his head and begged for Taro's life, making the others laugh, as Shin had never been weak like this before. The boss asked why he was protecting Sakamoto, and Shin explained that Taro had a family. The others didn't care about that. An assassin breaking the rules and abandoning his responsibilities had to face the consequences. Shin offered to trade his life for Taro's, hoping they would spare him, and they agreed. Pointing a gun at someone you admire was a mistake, and Shin wanted to make it right. However, the boss was thinking of letting Shin die first, and then sending someone to kill Sakamoto. A battle broke out, and despite being retired, Taro couldn't sit idly by. He acted immediately. He hadn't used his old tools for a long time, but when his little brother was in trouble, he had to step in to save him. Back with Shin, he had already taken down many of the enemy's men. These were just novices in the assassin world, so it wasn't difficult for him to eliminate them. The main concern was the large numbers and modern weapons. Shin used his psychic ability to read the enemy's intentions, managing to stay alive. The enemies realized the issue and split up to take shots from different angles, making the situation even worse. Shin managed to grab some ammunition magazines. He tried to escape but was hit by a stray bullet in the leg. He thought his life was over. But then the legendary assassin, Taro, appeared. Taro used a stun gun to fry the enemies. And when he focused on the target he needed to kill, he went all in. Taro had already anticipated this. And after eliminating the young thug, he had installed a bug in the gun to listen in on their plans. Shin was freed and thought to himself that no matter what, he would leave now. Taro, who had taken a liking to Shin, threw him an apron and invited him to work at his restaurant. Although the pay wasn't much, it was enough to live on. Everything happened so fast that Shin didn't know what to think. A few days later, Shin started getting used to his new job. Taro needed someone to help because he was too busy eating noodles. Hana and Aoi liked Shin, and everything went smoothly. Shin now used his psychic ability to assist customers. The old lady even praised him, saying he was so talented that he could guess what people wanted to buy. The young boy, who often visited the shop, invited Shin's brother to hang out. Shin turned him down, still working, and when asked about his previous job, he almost revealed everything, but Taro scared him into silence. A few days later, Shin had fully adapted to working at the grocery store. Everything was neatly organized and easy to find. Thanks to his efforts, he even shared stories of Sakamoto's incredible action-packed feats from the day before. Despite being retired, Sakamoto remained the strongest, capable of taking down an entire gang with a single strike. Shin's comments, however, didn't go unnoticed. Sakamoto's wife overheard and furiously confronted her husband. "You're not thinking of going back to being an assassin, are you?" she demanded. Startled, Taro quickly denied it. Feigning innocence, Shin chimed in, asking about the gang from the other day. "Didn't you kill them all anyway?" Sakamoto casually replied, "I can't guarantee they're dead. Maybe just crippled. Who knows?" His wife, unimpressed, sternly reminded him of their family rules. If Taro ever violated them, she'd file for divorce without hesitation, a threat that even the legendary assassin couldn't ignore. It was his one true weakness. And Shin, ever curious, tried to ask what those rules were. But before he could finish, Sakamoto gave him a mental smack for being stupid. Later, the duo ventured to Chinatown to pick up supplies. Shin was amazed by the size of the area and asked why they had to shop there of all places. Sakamoto presented a rare delicacy, steamed buns, baked fresh daily, with only 50 made each day. "These will make Aoi and the kid happy," he said, smiling. Shin couldn't help but admire how much Sakamoto loved his family. Still curious about the family rules, he prodded again, only for something unexpected to happen. A random object fell from above, hitting Sakamoto. Though unharmed himself, the precious steamed buns were crushed. Shin tried to brush the dust off, thinking they could still eat them. But the real culprit, a young woman, had landed from the rooftop above. She was being pursued and, cornered by her attackers, decided to fight back. Skilled in martial arts, she declared, "No way I'm letting you idiots catch me." Her confidence only escalated the chaos. Shin turned to Sakamoto for advice. Helping her would definitely anger Aoi. But ignoring the situation didn't sit right either. As the fight began, the woman displayed remarkable skill, using Tai Chi techniques to take down multiple attackers. She effortlessly dodged and countered every move. But when one thug managed to grab her from behind, things looked grim. The gang, angry at their losses, decided to escalate. Armed with knives, they were ready to do serious harm. But Sakamoto stepped in, breaking a knife in half with a mere pinch and knocking a man out cold with a single punch. Inspired, Shin joined the fray, helping the woman break free and take down the remaining thugs. Just as the dust settled, more enemies appeared, forcing the three to flee. Sakamoto grabbed the woman and carried her rooftop to rooftop with incredible speed, leaving their pursuers in the dust. Back at the gang's hideout, the boss, an old Chinatown crime lord, fumed over the woman's escape. He berated his lackeys until one of them was suddenly killed by a mysterious figure. Enter Bako and Sun Hee, infamous assassin siblings feared even by the boss himself. When informed of the situation, they agreed to retrieve the key the woman carried, an object that would grant control over the black market. As long as they were paid well, they didn't care who stood in their way. Meanwhile, Sakamoto, Shin, and the woman were catching their breath. Shin was shocked to learn she was the daughter of a legendary mafia family, one of the infamous Six Clans. When asked why the gang was after her, she revealed a key, a token her family had entrusted her with. It opened a secret treasury filled with unimaginable wealth. Her parents had sacrificed everything to protect it, but they were ultimately murdered. Shin suggested she just get rid of the key to avoid more trouble. But the woman exploded in anger. "My parents died to protect this," she shouted. Throwing it away would make their deaths meaningless. That night, she told herself she had to survive, no matter what. Only then could she face her parents, who were watching over her from above. The incident wasn't related to them, so she bid them farewell. Shin tried to follow her, but his comrades held him back. The legendary assassin asked her if someone with diabetes could still make dumplings. She didn't understand but replied that her father had taught her how. Shin suddenly had a bad feeling and warned Mr. Sakamoto not to get too deeply involved. But Sakamoto had already decided to skip grocery shopping to save this girl. In return, she had to make dumplings as good as her father's to repay him, a condition that left her stunned. Just then, two assassins burst in and sent Sakamoto flying 100 meters away. showcasing terrifying strength. Left with no choice, the girl stood her ground to fight. She quickly recognized the pair as infamous twin assassins who always got their target. Though their fees were exorbitant, they talked about morality. But in reality, Bako and Sun Hee were serial killers who played with people's lives for amusement. In their downtime, they even used their victims' heads to paint grotesque pictures, a sickening hobby. Hearing this, Shin charged forward to fight. His punches were earnest but lacked technique. The twin mocked him, thinking he was enraged over a teammate's death. Shin found it amusing that they didn't know about the legendary assassin standing before them, true amateurs. Just as they targeted the girl, Taro returned, smashing the ground with a single punch that cracked the floor. But even that wasn't enough to take them down. Sun Hee asked who he was, but Taro didn't bother to answer. The twins dismissed the damage as the fault of the old building and prepared for round 2. Bako demanded Taro's destruction, while Sun Hee demanded the girl hand over her keepsake key. She refused, saying it was her parents' final gift and she'd rather die than give it up. Hearing this, the twins revealed her father had said the same thing before they killed him. Furious, she lunged at them, but Sakamoto pulled her back. Knowing it was a provocation, Sun Hee launched throwing knives, but Taro blocked them effortlessly. He stated no one had the right to decide what was important to others. It was a lesson he learned from his wife. Years ago, during their courtship, Taro had returned from a mission drenched in blood. His wife, horrified by his assassin lifestyle, rejected his gifts, saying she couldn't accept anything tainted by death. She warned him, if he continued this path, he could forget about marrying her. Then, she jumped off a ledge to prove her point. Terrified, Taro dove after her, saving her just in time. She laughed, saying the fall was higher than she expected, leaving the killer both flustered and powerless. She had done it out of love, to help him understand how precious life was, not just his but the lives of those left behind. From that moment on, Taro vowed never to kill again, dedicating himself to saving lives as atonement. Reading this flashback brought tears to Shin's eyes, and Sakamoto reminded him to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Just then, the twins attacked again. They used weapons, so Taro improvised with kitchen utensils. Shin helped when he could, but Taro did most of the heavy lifting. Realizing their opponents had some skill, the twins began coordinating attacks. Leveraging their sibling bond, they unleashed their ultimate move. But Taro dodged every strike, even with cramped muscles from exertion. The twins were stunned. No one had ever evaded their hell slash before. As they prepared to strike again, a pot came hurtling through the air, smashing into one twin's head. The other, distracted, had his weapon shattered by a frying pan. Taro, slightly sore from using such heavy objects, made quick work of them. Sun Hee, in desperation, turned his attention to the girl, but Shin anticipated this, choking him out instantly. Meanwhile, Taro finished the fight by slamming a refrigerator onto Bako. With the twins defeated, the girl asked, "What kind of people are you?" Learning they were just regular employees, she burst out laughing and thanked them profusely. The three returned the twins to their boss, who was shocked his men couldn't stop them. The girl, still angry, held a knife to his throat but decided not to kill him, out of respect for Sakamoto. Instead, she left him trembling in fear. It felt like justice was finally served for her parents. Seeing that it might not be enough, Shin wanted to throw in a few more punches. But Taro swiftly put an end to that idea with a sharp warning look. He reminded Shin to stop meddling in things that didn't concern him. Thu Duong, however, decided this was enough revenge and invited the two of them to check out the storage room. Inside, they found a treasure trove, but the most valuable item was a jar of wine left by her father. It turned out that every generation of the family had preserved an item deemed their greatest treasure in this room. For Thu Duong's father, it was this wine, which he had saved for the day he could share a drink with his daughter when she was old enough. Reading her father's heartfelt note, she couldn't hold back her tears. In honor of her father and as a way to thank the two of them for their help, she opened the jar and offered them a drink. The messy dumplings they had earlier became their impromptu snacks, a symbol of their newfound friendship. The next day, life returned to normal, or so Shin thought. He was shocked to see Thu Duong working at the shop. Now officially employed, she declared she would carry on the family tradition by making authentic dumplings for a living. When Shin brought up the treasure trove, asking what she planned to do with all that wealth, she laughed and called him an idiot. Who in their right mind would sell a family heirloom for money? From now on, she said, they were all part of the Sakamoto family, bound by its rules. The first rule: no killing. Anyone who broke it would have to answer to the boss himself. Shin, hearing the contradiction in that statement, raised an eyebrow. But Taro? He didn't care in the slightest. After being hired, Fu Duong continuously arrived late, which